Today, I'll walk you through the acquisition process of your Gaggiuino mod, which may take 3 to 4 months from the moment you place your first order to delivery. And to simplify your planning, I divided the whole process in 7 steps so that in the end of the video, you are ready to place your order, freeing up your mind to focus on your studies and the preparation for the installation, which I'll also cover in my next videos. So if you're interested, subscribe to receive the notifications. The first 5 steps are decisions that you need to make. I'll be brief on topics that I already covered in my previous video with the introduction to the Gaggiuino, and if you want to see more details, I recommend you to watch the previous one. I'll leave a card here and also a link in the description. The first decision that you need to make is if you're going through the legal or PCB route. The legal route is the one that you buy all the components, wires, connectors. You'll have to deal with crimping, soldering. It's more complex, it's more laborious, it's for people with more experience. And believe it or not, I made a simulation, and if I bought all the components and have it delivered to the Netherlands, it would be more expensive. And since we are trying to make things simple here, I'm gonna cover only the PCB route. The second decision that you need to make is if you're installing generation 2 or 3. In my previous video, I discussed the main difference between those two options. Today, you can buy any of those. My recommendation is to install generation 3 because it has more capabilities, and despite being closed, this source code for now, I think it is a better option because this is the one that is going to be evolved, and you will still have a free access to the new versions, to the new releases, and the update is going to be simple. It's going to be like you do in your Windows or your Mac. You just press update and it's done. In my case, I had already the generation 2 that I acquired before the release of the new version. So right now, this is the only that I have. I'm going to install in my Gaggia Classic, and I'm going to show it in my next videos. But I have already ordered the new version. I'm going to install in my Rancilio SIlvia, and then you will see the difference between the two. But one thing that you need to have in mind is that the shipping of these new versions is delayed due to the necessity of adding some custom markers to the new LCDs. And this is necessary because the vendor changed the hardware without marking the new hardware with a different revision. So if we go to the Gaggiuino website, we'll see here that there are specific actions that you need depending on which version of machine you have. For example, in the US, in between 91 and 2018, you need to add the grounding for your safety. If you bought a machine after 2019, they implemented the Eco PCB, which will switch off your machine after a few minutes. Then you need to make the power switch mod. The Gaggia Classic Evo Pro has the 9-bar OPV. Then you need to change to 10 or 12 bar. There are procedures for each of those machines, how you can change your machine to 12 bar by changing a spring or adding some washers. If you're installing in a Rancilio SIlvia, you will have to go to the Discord. There is a channel only for the implementation in Rancilio SIlvias, and then you can have some tips on how to make those modifications. And as you can see here, the E24 is probably going to be compatible with the current version. However, it's a brass boiler and it has a bigger volume. So I believe that the temperature offset is going to be different. And also, Gaggiuino uses a different algorithm to keep the temperature stability. And it depends on how the temperature increases, decreases, and keeps it stable. And I think that when you change the boiler, you will also have to change some parameters, but to be seen. Then the fourth decision is if you're installing the hardware scales and the time of flight and LED. The benefit of installing the hardware scale is that it's much more precise than the predictive scale that will try to guess how much coffee you will have in your cup, and you will have to calibrate, and it's going to be different depending on the coffee and the grind size. But the hardware scale is more difficult to implement. The time of flight is a module that will estimate how much water you have in your water tank, and the LED is just light. It's more beautiful, and you can see the water inside your tank. The fifth decision is if you're opting for the stock wiring integration or the custom wiring. Custom wiring is cleaner. It's not mandatory for all the cases. It's highly recommended when you have the eco mode in the machines after 2019, if it's a Gaggia, or 2016 if it's a Rancilio SIlvia. I'm gonna make the stock wiring in my case because it's a Gaggia Classic 2006, and I don't need to bypass any eco mode because there isn't. Okay, now let's jump to the purchase. If you're opting for the legal route, in the Gaggiuino webpage, you'll have the list of everything that you need to buy for your build. I made a simulation, and in my case, it was more expensive to buy each of those components and have it delivered to the Netherlands than buying the PCB, okay? We are going through the PCB route. So here we have the list of everything that we need. And if we are opting for Gen 2, we can buy everything on AliExpress. But if you buy in Gen 3, you need to buy from Pick Coffee or DIY-EFI, because the screen must be activated by one of those approved vendors. Then if we go to Pick Coffee, you can see here that they are estimating to resume shipping between 15th of March or 15th of April. And if we see the options here, you can see that we have Gen 3 and Gen 2 available. You have both the kits for Gaggia Classic Pro and Gaggia Classic. For the Gen 3, you have the kit set that includes everything except the modules. And you have the complete kit, which include the 2 modules, the hardware scale and the time of flight, and also expedited delivery. One thing that I wanted to highlight is that it's recommended to choose the expedited delivery. It's more expensive, but it covers damage and loss. But if you choose regular shipping or e-express and it doesn't arrive, or if it is damaged during transportation, it's not going to be covered. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that if you buy this kit set plus, let's open here, plus the time of flight and the dual scale board, it's going to be as expensive as the complete kit set, but only if you choose the soldered 4 load cells. This is more expensive. The difference between soldered and not soldered is that if you see here, you have 4 wires, red, white, green, and black. And those terminals need to be soldered here. On the bottom, you have the 4 places for the 4 wires. On the top, you have the 4 holes for the other load cell. You're gonna use 2 only, and they recommend to buy 4 for you to have spares. One thing that I wanted to highlight in the complete kit is that you can choose premium or packing for Gaggia Classic or Gaggia Classic Pro. Both kits include expedited shipping and soldered dual scale board. They include the kit for the time of flight, but the premium pack is a limited offer that has, in my opinion, the main differentiator is that everything is tested before shipping. So the PCB, the touchscreen, the ST-Link, it's all flashed and tested before shipping. They include the SD card, which you're gonna have to buy if you choose the other version. Those you may not need. You can cut the holes with a sharp knife or a scissor. You can use your own screwdriver, and you have some extras here. But for me, the main reason for going premium is that everything is flashed and tested before shipping. This is what is going to make it easier for you. Another thing that I wanted to highlight is the difference of buying from Pick Coffee and DIY. If you see here, these scales, they are FPC type. What is the FPC type? Is this cable here that it's easier to connect, and you don't have to build your connector. If we go to DIY, you will see that we have here 10 holes, and you will have to build a connector. So it's less work if you buy from Pick Coffee. Also, if we buy from Pick Coffee, you can see that they send the magnets and the screws that you're gonna need for your build. And notice that it's a different size and threads. And then if you have to buy from AliExpress, 1, it's another acquisition. 2, it's not only one component. And 3, they don't sell 2 screws of each, or 4 or 6. You're gonna have to buy like 10, 50 of each one. Magnets, I think it's the same. They sell in packs of 10. So it's gonna be more expensive and inconvenient. Another difference if you buy the scales from DIY-EFI is that you're buying only the boards, you're not buying the load cells. So if you're buying from DIY, remember that you need to buy also the load cells. Load cells, magnets, nuts, screws, washers, everything, okay? Only the board is sold. But of course, there may be difference in prices and or maybe time or freight, because you may be based in the UK, and then DIY can be more convenient for you. So I recommend to check both, simulate the costs of each kit for you, and being careful with those small details, like if all the components are shipped, or if you need to buy, for example, screws, nuts, washers, and magnets. Another difference when you buy from Peak Coffee, if you're choosing only the kit set, for example, you can see that they ship both the high voltage and the low voltage wires. And if you buy from DIY, you can see here that DIY sends only the low voltage wires. But price-wise, we can simulate here. Okay, so we can see here that if we add only the kit set with the dual scale board and the time of flight, they will add also the card processing fee, the delivery, and the total it's gonna be $359. If we buy from DIY, the Gaggiuino V4 kit set, plus the time of flight and the dual scales, the total cost will be $200 plus $64 for the duties if they delivered to the Netherlands. And if we convert pounds to dollars, it's going to be around $322. So the difference is $37. However, if you buy from DIY, you have also to buy the magnets, screws, nuts, bolts, some wires, connectors to crimp the high voltage wires, and maybe a crimping tool. So I think it's maybe more expensive from DIY, at least for me in the Netherlands. But as I said, try to simulate for a case. If you buy the Gen 2, it's going to be a little bit less expensive. Let's simulate now with the 4 load cells without being already soldered. We're going to save $20. So if we add the Gen 2 with the same modules, the time of flight and the dual scale board, but now I'm going to solder myself the wires to the board, then it can cost $264. Another thing that I wanted to show you is the difference between the Classic Pro and the Classic versions. So basically the difference is that Gaggia Classic Pro has this OPV that is a plastic one, and they use silicone tubes. Then you're gonna need a different fitting. Gaggia Classic uses PTFE tube and this quick release fitting. So that's why we choose different kits for different types of machines. If you have a Rancilio SIlvia, I recommend you to choose the Gaggia Classic. You just need to order a different thermocouple. For Gaggia, it's an M4, the thread, and for Rancilio SIlvia, it's M3. If you put in the observations that you're going to modify a Rancilio SIlvia and ask them to send the M3, they will replace it for you. So my recommendation is put in the comments, and then you're going to have the right thermocouple for Rancilio SIlvia. And just remembering that any kits that you buy will not include the SD card, then you will have to order it separate, or if you already have one, you don't need to buy, of course. Finally, I haven't seen this M4 10mm screw in any of the kits from Peak Coffee or DIY, so I recommend to have this at hand. I think that is needed to fix the SSR to your frame. I'm not sure, but just in case, I don't want you to not be able to finish your installation because you don't have a screw, a washer, and a nut. So bear in mind that you will probably need it. Another thing that I didn't see in the kits is the super glue that you can see here. You're gonna need for the scale at least, and the time of flight. And finally, you may need some tools like crimping pliers and screwdrivers, Allen keys, wrenches. I'll leave a list of tools that I think that are useful, just as a checklist for you. Now, 3D printed parts. You have 2 suppliers. One is Hudson Creative Group, that is based in the US. The other is Espresso, that is based in the Netherlands. What you're gonna need is an enclosure for the screen. This is the model for the new version. And this is the model for Generation 2. And you will need the housing for the board, and this one fits both the Gen 2 and Gen 3. Gen 3 is the PCB V4, Gen 2 is the PCB V3.1. If we make a simulation for V3, you can see that it's going to cost 22 euros plus shipping. And if we add shipping and taxes, it's going to cost 32.61 euros in the Netherlands. If we buy in the US, same housing for the PCB and for the display, it's going to cost $22. And if we simulate the delivery to an address in the US, it's going to cost $29. This address is fictitious, of course. If you're buying the housing for the displays in the new version, you have these three options. One is the front mount, the second is the funnel mount, and the third is the rear mount. Those two don't require magnets, but this one requires magnets. And of course that you can print all by yourself if you have a 3D printer or a friend who can print for you. I recommend the models from Lugo. He is one of the developers, and he has the best housings for all the boards and displays. So this is the housing for the PCB that we were choosing from both the vendors in the US and in the Netherlands. It's the same. This is the housing for the display for the new version. It's the same that they are selling. You have here all the instructions and the components that you need. He also has the parts for the scales, the parts for the time of flight and LED that you're gonna need. I'll leave the links for all the models that you're gonna need for the Gaggiuino modification, including the display, the scales, and the time of flight in the description, okay? And again, buy only from the official suppliers. There are only two approved, DIY and Big Coffee. If you buy from another vendor, you may not have support, you may have other bugs, you may receive wrong instructions on how you wire your kit, and this solution is not going to be evolved, it's not going to be supported. I've seen some people asking in the Discord help with those kits to help them to solve the problems that were caused by those wrong instructions or lower quality components or outdated firmware. What I saw is that they tried to help, but the general recommendation is undo and redo following the official instructions. It's hard for them to troubleshoot when things were not built according to the instructions. You lose the rationale, the potential root causes, and then it's much more difficult to investigate. And these people, they are volunteers. They are using their free time to help the others. So if it's not following the instructions, most of the times they will tell you to redo your installation or to ask the vendor to give you the support. And I don't know how it will go. So after having a lot of issues with those non-official vendors, the general instruction that I saw is if you have a hardware problem, go to your vendor and ask him to solve the problem for you. If you're having some firmware issues, they may try to help you, but things may not work if you're using the wrong board. And from what I read, this non-authorized supplier is selling an outdated board. And my recommendation is buy from the official suppliers. Okay, thanks for watching and see you in the installation video.